He-Man and the Masters of the Universe changed the landscape of the animation business forever. Charles Zembillas, character designer and animation industry veteran, had only just started working at Filmation when pre-production began on the series.
And I was right there at the beginning of He-Man, at the absolute beginning of He-Man.
I called Zembillas to discuss his pathway in character design and to find out how he came to work on the defining cartoon of the 1980s.
I grew up in a golden age. The television here in America, television was really, really good. We had cartoons every single day at 6 o'clock. It was mostly Hanna-Barbera cartoons. So it'd be like Huckleberry Hound on Mondays, Yogi Bear on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Fridays would be Rocky and Bullwinkle, and Thursdays was Woody Woodpecker. So I would go and I would draw that, like memorize how to draw these characters. There was a fellow in my high school who was a year ahead of me. He was an excellent artist. I found out that he went to this one school, and I figured, well, he went there for art. The school counselor recommended that I go there, so I went there, and I found out that he was a business major. He might have taken one or two classes on the side, but it was because it was just like electives. So after college was over, I had like a really difficult decision to make. I grew up close to the Chicago area, and I was going to Chicago, which was a big design and illustration city, advertising design, all that kind of stuff. And I was showing my portfolio to these studio people, and they were all telling me the same thing, like, kid, you're talented, but you got to go back to school. You're still too raw. So I made the very difficult decision. I said, well, I'm going to continue with my education. And I made an appointment, showed my portfolio at a school called the American Academy of Art. And the American Academy is all rooted in fundamentals. You can't go anywhere without taking 10 months of fundamentals and 10 months of figure drawing every single day. It changed me. It just, I really, I saw the difference that it made in my art and in everybody else who was there. At the end of my second year, I was recruited by somebody from Hallmark Cards, like the biggest greeting card company in the world.
Despite finding success at the company, his stay there would be short-lived.
It was in Kansas City. And I'm going like, well, I've been here for a couple of years. I've pretty much done everything in Kansas City that there is to do. This isn't really what I want to do. I had picked up a book called Disney Animation, The Illusion of Life. And I read the whole thing. The beginning of it, the introduction, the guy who was the head of Disney at the time, Ron Miller, he mentioned in the book that they were looking to revive Disney animation, but they couldn't find people who could animate in the Disney style. And I was heavily influenced by Disney. And I said, I can animate in the Disney style. And I took my portfolio and I just gathered it together and I just worked on it a little bit more. And I sent it into Disney. And at the time, we didn't have voicemail, we didn't have answering machines, nothing. I gave them my home number. So I didn't realize it, but they were trying to contact me. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, I said, I want to know what's going on. So I called them and I said, hi, I sent my portfolio. I just want to make sure that you guys got it. Because who's your name? What's your name? I told them, and I says, coming over. I said, can you be here in a week? You made it into a training program. And I said, I can't leave in a week. There's like a couple feet of snow on the ground and, I have an obligation to the company that I work for. So we made arrangements for me to start in the summer. What happened by the summer was that I gave my notice and I had bought like this little beat up little car, borrowed a friend's tent, and I headed out for California. By the time I got to California, the whole industry was in a strike. And I went to Disney and everybody was picketing.
The strike ended, but everything had changed for the industry and Zembillas.
The strike was devastating. It changed everything. There was 80% unemployment in the industry at the time. So I called Disney and I couldn't connect with the guy that I was talking to before. So I just kept calling out the studios and I would call this studio, that studio, and I called this one studio called Filmation. And Filmation was, they did a lot of Saturday morning cartoons. I knew the shows that they did and stuff, and they were the only ones. I just said, look, just all I want, just look at my stuff. That's all I'm asking you to do is just look at my stuff. And this one fellow I was talking to said, okay, come on in tomorrow morning. So I brought my portfolio on a Friday morning to Filmation. So he liked what he saw. And then he took me to somebody else, and he took me to somebody else, and then he took me to the head of the studio, a wonderful man named Lou Scheimer, the founder of Filmation. He's just a really wonderful, wonderful man. Everybody loved him. He goes to me, he goes, okay, are you familiar with what we do? I said, yes, sir. I watch your cartoons every Saturday morning. And he said, okay, come in Monday. We're going to start you off apprentice layout. And I made it. I got it. And I went across the street to a payphone and I called my mother. And everybody, of course, was worried about me because, they didn't know where I was or what I was doing. And I called her up. I told her, I said, I made it, Mom. I made it. I'm in the animation business. I'm starting on Monday. And she was so excited. I became like a hometown hero. It was a really, really wonderful day.
Zembillas didn't know it at the time, but Filmation were about to embark on their most famous production ever.
I remember that they did a commercial for a toy the year before. I remember seeing it when I was in Kansas City. I was really impressed with it. I guess what happened as a result of that was that a new series was going to start up as based on that commercial. Somebody came with a box, and it was full of these action figures, and it was from Mattel Toys. Somebody said, "This is the next show we're going to do, guys," and the toys were He-Man. So one of the senior artists there, she got the good guys, and the other one got the bad guys, and I got the vehicles, and I was right there at the beginning of He-Man. At the absolute beginning of He-Man. Of course, it was already created. It was already a toy line, but when it came to the animated series, this was the absolute beginning of it. I was doing these vehicle models, which I didn't know how to do them. I was taking the vehicle, I was doing the top view, side view, bottom view, front view, back view, 3/4 angles, all this kind of stuff. So they thought that I was a vehicle designer, and they wanted me to keep designing vehicles. I said, "Guys, I do characters and stuff," and I started getting very frustrated. So I basically what happened was they moved me into this was a new kind of like a new category in animation at the time, because you didn't have character design as a separate standalone aspect of animation. The animators would design the characters, they had artists would design the characters, but this was the very beginning of character design as a category within animation. And so I just started designing characters. I would, they come up with a script breakdown, and they tell me what they needed. And I just started designing some of these characters, and that's what happened.
Zembillas found himself working alongside some of the best in the business.
When I got into animation, I had a room to myself, and that's what I thought it was going to be. I have a room to myself, and then a little while later, I got somebody else to share it with me, and he was one of the first friends that I made in the business was a guy named Bruce Timm. And I don't know if you're aware of who Bruce Timm is, but he's the fellow that went on and did Batman animated series. He was an amazing art. He was only 19 years old. He was just a kid. He'd never been to art school. And we got along really well, I was watching, looking at him saying, "My goodness, man, I've never seen anybody who could just do this. It was effortless for him." And then I met another fellow there who was also an awesome artist. His name was Bob Klein. And kind of Bob Klein set the tempo for the He-Man look when it came to actually animating the series. And so he really inspired me.
Growing frustrations led Zembillas to walk away from Filmation, but he soon returned to the company.
If you look at the first season of He-Man, my name only appears in the first 5 episodes. But in the second season, my name was all through it because I stuck with it. And then I developed She-Ra, the She-Ra series, She-Ra Princess of Power. And there was another series that they did after that called Brave Star, which was like a space western. And then, the day came, and it was just, again, I couldn't deal with it any longer. I just couldn't deal with the studio politics. I couldn't deal with the poor working conditions. I couldn't deal with all that stuff. So I left, and so I never went back to Filmation after that. And a couple years later, they closed up, and Disney hired all the animators. Disney doubled their animation staff overnight because of Filmation. That's how you got Little Mermaid, and that's how you got Beauty and the Beast, and that's how you got Aladdin. It was all those people, those experienced animators and artists from Filmation.
In 1995, Zembillas was called in to help on a video game project that would end up being his defining work in character design.
See, the thing about the video game whole thing is that turned out to be the big thing. People are aware of what I've done for He-Man and She-Ra and all that other kind of stuff, but it was the video game work that I did that really I'm known for. I brought something to show you. This right there is a McDonald's Happy Meal, folks. Some people told me about it, and that's like Crash Bandicoot. See this? See this? So see these characters? I created these characters.